feet have something to say that's too speech. Nowadays, our goal is to not remember and translate the state of knowledge and memory.
So I guess I was just about to go into the piece, and then I realized this needs a little bit of backstory.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Womp,
So
womp.
the past, I'll keep it short though. The past 2 summers, I've joined an organization called Hans House Studio, and I've traveled to Poland. And over there, we were recreating a 17th century wooden synagogue, where every last one of its kind was destroyed by the Germans when they invaded. So we were recreating it out of photographs and blueprints that were saved by people who had the foresight, I guess, to know that they would probably all be destroyed. And it's completed now, and it's being installed in a new museum that's opening in Warsaw called the History of the Museum of the Polish Jews, which is the first museum ever in the world to celebrate the history of Jews before the Holocaust. So this is what I wrote about my experience over 2 summers there. More than half a century after, little yellow flowers are still afraid to bloom inside the gates. They line up like a battalion of soldiers, the first row nearly touching the barbed wire. They're small enough to duck under, but of course they don't. Blackbirds swarm the sky like moths, swerving as if they were avoiding ghosts or dodging memories of clouds of smoke, and I choked in reflex, although there was nothing on the air but the thick smell of manure drifting from nearby farms. A museum of remembrance. I think it's what they want, but it looks as if it were thrown together by children. Photographs of victims and survivors backed on construction paper frames, wrinkled and yellowed from time or the sun. I pass a pile of soles, the soles of shoes large enough to fill a room, and past the scratchings on wood preserved in glass, a case enclosing bones and ashen. I need to lean against the wall and work my hardest just to breathe. But there is a little yellow flower resting on a wooden board that was once someone's bed. It has been plucked, but not brought in against its will, I hope. We left, carrying more questions with us than when we walked in. We stopped at the info desk, and the woman behind saw his pin. Dworzec Rekonstruktowa. Synagogue reconstruction. He began to explain the project, as we all had so many times. We had that elevator speech memorized, but she cut him off as she came from behind the counter. "I know," she said. "I know." She said thank you and began to cry, and we did the same. Dziękuję, thank you, hugging and crying and thanking in each other's languages. We didn't know what else to say. Back to the room that was once a synagogue, then a German supply room, then a music school, then back to a synagogue, and now our temporary studio space, and I'm painting flowers. Cool light base, then warm light base, then a wash of yellow shield, then English red, then outlined in corner red, brush, blend, flick, repeat. There were 12,000 Jews in the city of Gdansk before the war, and this is the only synagogue that remains, with a congregation of about 15. They could barely fit our team at the tables when we joined them for Shabbat dinner. Elbow to elbow, the rabbi and I sang jazz standards. Just direct your feet to the sunny side of the street. 1 year later, and I'm back. Warsaw this time, and we're working in the museum instead of the synagogue. Somehow the same rabbi that sang with me in Gdansk had moved to Warsaw. He didn't recognize me, though, and he only sang the blessings at Shabbat dinner. The city is flat. There is one section in the middle, Muranov, with steep green hills with deep green grass, and the nicest apartments you'll find, families and college students, and only minor amounts of graffiti. A friend tells me that most of the residents don't know, as I watch 2 young boys run over the hills in their underwear, shooting water pistols at each other, eagerly. Maybe it's better they don't know. Maybe it's better they don't know each night they rest their heads over mountains of resting bones and brick from when the ghetto burned. Maybe it's beautiful that life goes on. Maybe 1,000 years from now, the little yellow flowers will be the only ones that remember. If they remember, maybe they'll remember the name of the soil they thrust their roots into is Hebrew. Poland, Poland, rest here. Maybe if they remember, they'll still be brave enough to.